Do you think that Hope Uzodinma would support the release of Nnamdi Kanu? Nnamdi Kanu has not committed the kind of sin or the kind of atrocities, the kind of constitutional infraction. Now you have several kingpins, whether they are bandits, whether they are terrorists, or whether they're anything they are called, they are free and going about their businesses. Those characters, the operatives that are headlining the alliance, I tell you for sure, are properly positioned to give APC run for their money. No Nigerian should hope and believe that the judiciary is their last hope when it comes to electoral matters. So for the judiciary, there is no hope in that regard.
My guest today is Dr. Leonard Nzenwa, former national president of the Inter-Party Advisory Council and, of course, former national chairman of African Action Congress. Let's start with the assessment of this government and, of course, the ministers. Has any of them impressed you, and in what direction?
Oh, okay. Let me take it this way, because most times people tend to be very generic when you talk about the government. They single out President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But you have the legs, you have the hands of the government. And these heads and hands of the government is essentially people like the ministers, people like, the technocrats, those in the civil service, and a whole lot of people. Now, let me particularly look at some of the people, the ministers, as they currently stand. By my own assessment, I will tell you without saying much about it is Festus Keyamo. Festus Keyamo is a legal practitioner we know very much. He's not been very much in the news for a very long time. I think there is a deliberate decision on his part not to be frequenting the media or be in the spotlight of the media. But somehow, Festus had done so much in the aviation industry. At least by clearing the over $160 million forest backlog, which is a very big and very huge thing that almost crumbled the aviation industry during the Buhari administration. He cleared that, and the reform that has been taking place in the aviation industry, he's been doing that very methodically, very systematically, and it's yielding result. Now, you also know there's a whole lot of infrastructural upgrade in most of the airport that we're having in the country currently as we speak. So to a very large extent, Keyamo has been doing so much in the aviation industry, and not much is being heard about it. I think when you make this level of achievement without saying much, it becomes more glorifying, it becomes much more pacifying, it also becomes even great for people to talk about. So Keyamo has been off news, but I think he's doing very well in the aviation industry. Now, who else do I pick? Well, people talk about, often Ojo, they talk about Ojo most of the time. Well, okay, Ojo is doing very well in the Internal Affairs Ministry. But I just want to talk about, let me talk about Wike himself. Wike is much more now. He's a super minister. Let me use that word, super minister. Wike has a political denominator character. And what I mean by that there is an inherent DNA around Wike that presupposes, that wires him to be domineering in everything he does. So it's a natural phenomenon that has also infiltrated his political life. But the question we need to ask ourselves, because I look at it at a comparative level, I've asked myself, we have the FCT ministers that have come into Abuja in and out over the decades. Of course, the last person we heard so much about was El-Rufai. And El-Rufai, his time or his tenure in FCT largely was characterized by demolition and destruction. That is not to say that Wike is not also doing same. Because I understand that in the course of doing these things, a lot of things will happen. However, what I can say comparatively, based on what I've seen so far, anytime I come into Abuja and see a whole lot of things, I see some level of infrastructural upgrade. I see some areas being opened. I see some certain areas you see there's some level of infrastructure activity taking place. And not only that, if you go to places like Kubwa, you go to places like Kuje, you go to places like Asokoro, a whole lot of areas are being opened up. But the other flip side is the destruction that is taking place for this development to take place. And one of the things you need to also find out is drawing a distinct line between upgrade, infrastructural upgrade, and also this destruction to pivot for the infrastructural development. Now, that is an area he has come under enormous attack, and that attack is not doing very well for him, because a lot of people contend and say very strongly that Wike is destroying a whole lot of things, especially the green areas and all that. Now, but let me ask everybody, what is the face of Abuja currently as we speak? Is there any identifiable, visible infrastructural development that has taken place? I would say yes, it has. It has. And that to some extent is something a plus for him own side. But on the other side, he mixes politics with governance, which are two different things. The other thing that is happening is that his political life is much more dominating his governance side. And so to that extent, I will tell you that is an area he needs to also come down, begin to walk around. So for me, I can tell you why comparatively saying, based on the comparison that I've seen so far, what has happened in the last years, compared to what Wike has done. Wike has done well, infrastructural wise. One of the things you need to notice is the influx of people into Abuja, main city. And the reason is because most of the hinterlands are becoming very, very insecure for a lot of people. You go across the states, especially from the north, you can see a very high level of migration of people from the northern part of the country. The best and the next place they go to come to is Abuja. The migration is even not much more from the eastern part or the southern part of the country, but largely from the north. So definitely it's quite understandably that you have a lot of traffic within the Abuja community, the cosmopolitan Abuja city-state. Now, insecurity, is it only in Abuja? Insecurity is spread across this country. And it is not only the function of Wike. I'm not standing for him, but as the chief security officer of this FCT, Wike has a duty to ensure that at least there is a significant appreciable level of security within the FCT community. Now, what has he done so far to do that? I can tell you for sure it's not been very good, the kind of information I've been getting over the weeks, over the months, over the years concerning the security situation in Abuja. It continued to get bad and it continued to get worse. But the insecurity in Abuja is a larger and a much more broader implication, or a much more effect of what is happening in the national security landscape. So it is a function of what is happening in the Nigerian security landscape, and also it's impacting on FCT. Now, what do we do about it? The president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is the chief security officer of this country, and sitting in Abuja, he has a lot to do to see what he can also help in this regard. But the bus stops in Wike's table. So, to your question, yes, there is high level of insecurity in Abuja, and I think it requires an urgent and immediate solution to resolve it.
Let's look at Nnamdi Kanu's continued incarceration and, of course, the unending litigation.
I need to give it to you up front before I begin to look at the whole thing that leads to Nnamdi Kanu being in the state where the whole thing has got into. Nnamdi Kanu had no business being incarcerated this long. I say it, and I'm very, very vehement about it. Nnamdi Kanu has not committed the kind of sin or the kind of atrocities, the kind of constitutional infraction any Nigerian has committed. Now, you have people like Sunday Igboho, who was arrested with arms. Igboho is going about doing whatever he's doing. Now, you have several kingpins, whether they are bandits, whether they are terrorists, or whether they're anything they are called, they are free and going about their businesses. Nnamdi Kanu is simply expressing his constitutional and humanitarian right. And so to keep on caging Nnamdi Kanu or incarcerating him is not only a disservice to humanity, is also a great constitutional crisis that will come into this country. Let me take it from this point. How do we explain a situation? A man who has stood up clearly that what he is fighting for is the marginalization, perceived marginalization of a certain set of people in this country. And it has a historical anecdote. Now, what is the historical anecdote? The certain people, the Igbo people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, over the decades have been marginalized in this country. It is not a matter of allegation. It is not a matter of perception. It is something that is as strong as visible, seen everywhere. And Nnamdi Kanu has stood up as the only person that consistently over the years and had said to everybody that my people are suffering, that my people are not enjoying what they are supposed to enjoy in the country called Nigeria. On account of that, he stood up and questioned the Nigerian state. So now, the Nnamdi Kanu issue is a multi-layered issue. First of all, you need to understand that there is a legal perspective to it. There is a political perspective to it. There is an economic perspective to it. There's also a socio-economic perspective to it. Now, let's look at the legal side of it. This is a man that was arrested in 2022. 2021. And when he was arrested, what was he arrested for? The charges were terrorism, treasonable felony, and managing an unlawful society. Now, those are the three things that he was accused of. Now, they went on trial. By 2017, the court granted him bail, and he came out. By 2022, when they attacked his house, in Umuahia. The natural instinct for somebody to survive is to see how he can survive. It's just to find a way to exit the environment where he was being attacked. And so he fled the particular scene, and his fleeing of the particular scene, he found himself in the UK or wherever it is. And on account of that, they said he has run away. Now, the point being made is that while he was there, an arrangement was done to get him from Kenya, where he went to, and brought him back to the country. Since then, the legal issue has remained the way it is. It's not been moving forward. It's not going back. There has been a sustained effort directed by not only directed by the state, but there's some political contending interests within the Nigerian state, within the Igbo elite, within the political class to keep to put Kanu down. So, in the helicopter view, the Kanu phenomenon, the Kanu issue, is one issue that can consume the Nigerian state if it is not well managed. It is beyond the rhetorics we keep on talking about. The Kanu issue is an exemplary issue to show how we can manage a country. And if that is not done properly, if it is not done methodically, if it is not done with a sense of genuineness on the part of the Nigerian state, to see how they can have a political dialogue to manage the situation, it will definitely create more crisis. Of course, as we speak now, the Southeast is agitated. There is a plan of a protest that is coming up. Now, the nature and the reason the entry of that particular protest, that we're also trying to analyze. But one thing remains, that there is a very large number of population of Nigerians, whether they're from the Southeast, whether they're from the South, whether they're from the Southwest, whether from the North. Everybody has one particular focus now to get Nnamdi Kanu out of the place. Then you ask yourself, why is it now that the whole focus, the attention is for Nnamdi Kanu to come out? Is it for the purpose of securing a political capital? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. Why would it be at the timing now that is happening? Well, whatever timing it is, we're all interested. What we're interested in is Nnamdi Kanu should be left off hook and let him rejoin not only his family. He has a right, because as we speak, his health is bad, and he has to go and take medical treatment wherever it is. So finally, regarding Nnamdi Kanu, my position is Nnamdi Kanu has not committed any sin which all the terrorists in this country have committed. Nnamdi Kanu is not as worse as Sunday Igboho. Nnamdi Kanu is not as demonic as the line of terrorists that are lined up in the north. They're everywhere. Nnamdi Kanu is not as evil as the bandits that spread out. That you have a bandit that will come and have a meeting with the Nigerian state operatives. Yet Nnamdi Kanu, who did not carry a gun, who did not do anything that is inhuman to speak like this set of people, is kept incarcerated in a cell. It's time for Nnamdi Kanu to come out from the prison, and we can move forward for a political dialogue on how we can reintegrate the Igbo people back to the nation state called Nigeria.
Why is it the Southeast governors are not strongly committed, so to say, in the release of Nnamdi Kanu?
There is a huge crisis among the political elite. Now, the lack of cohesion amongst the political elite is one factor that we need to also ask ourselves. Now, you need to find yourself, who are the governors of the Southeast? How did they get to where they are? You're talking about Mba, who just defected to APC. You're talking about Alex Uti. You're talking about Soludo. You're talking about several of the governors in the Southeast. Yes, Francis Wifre and Hope Uzodinma and the rest of them. Now, if I ask you one particular question, in yours, based on the assessment of all that has happened, do you think that Hope Uzodinma would support the release of Nnamdi Kanu? There's no way he will support it.
Why do you think so?
Why I think so is because before his incarceration, you saw the battle, not only the media battle, you saw the punches, you saw not only the verbal punches, you saw the political volleys that was going on between himself and the governor of Imo State. Now, not only that, he sees Hope Uzodinma sees Nnamdi Kanu as one of those who had made Imo State ungovernable for himself. So no right-thinking or rational governor will want Nnamdi Kanu to come out. But it is time to understand that this is a statesman. I am now a statesman that governs a people, and these parochial things should not be features or factors that I should look into, but rather it should be things I will consider in a broader perspective. So to your question, why is it that people like Hope Uzodinma, who is a governor, will not want Nnamdi Kanu? I've just addressed that. He will not want because that time he made it in a way that it becomes very uncomfortable for him to govern the state. So Hope Uzodinma said. Now, for other governors, you need to understand the background of Oti himself. Oti is not a very noisy person. Oti is a very sound, professional, laid back, but organized political leader that is doing much in Abia, and that is his constituency. I do know of a certainty that OT has been at the background doing a whole lot for Nnamdi Kanu to come out, even though he might not come out in the media to talk about it. But there's a lot of work that's been going on the ground to see how Nnamdi Kanu will come out. First, it is his constituency, because that is where he comes from. Secondly, it will also be a political plus for him. Thirdly, it will now also bolster his chances of re-election. Fourthly, it will put him in a position to even get closer to the president and also to see how they can project the Igbo cause. So I see him being at the forefront of this particular campaign, but he is being also very, very cautious in his movement. Now, for people like Wunfure of Airborne, I can see neither here nor there where he is. Of course, you should understand his political mentor, Umahi. Umahi is vehemently opposed to anything that has to do with the Biafran cause. So I do not see any difference. I do not see any impact. I do not see any way his boy to speak, or his political son will want to go to want to do what he doesn't want to do. So that's for Ebonyi itself. Now for Soludo, you know Soludo's position regarding this. Soludo does not take kindly to anything that has to do with this Biafran cause and all that. And he has voiced that over time. It's not hidden. His position is very clear. Now to your question, why is it that the Southeastern governors are reluctant to come out forcefully to now, as an umbrella body, to see how they can get Nnamdi Kanu out of incarceration? The answer simply is this: everybody is scared of his position of governor, and that how impact on him either during his re-election or their continual governance of the particular state. That is the reason. They're just being selfish about it, and that's where it stands.
Let's look at the state of the nation, the gale of defections, the PDP governors moving in droves to the APC. Is it that they don't understand the meaning of opposition party, or what exactly is driving them?
I am deeply troubled. I'm deeply troubled with the trend of things in the polity. I tend to talk about what we're seeing, the theatrics we're seeing in the political ecosystem is becoming too dramatic or too melodramatic. for everybody to begin to smile. It is becoming very dangerous. It's becoming extremely, it is approaching to the tyrannical level where we now say clearly that this particular movement is nearing the one-party state. Now, before now, it is simply unthinkable that anybody would think that Mba will cross over to APC. I feel deeply troubled because as an operative in the political system, having occupied the prestigious position of the Inter-Party Advisory Council of Nigeria, as IPAC, the umbrella body of all political parties in Nigeria, as this national president, where I have all the political party chairmen as my members, as my people, I see this as a grave issue that needs to be addressed, or else this country is gone. Now, I am thinking of the Cameroon. I'm thinking about neighboring country where you have sit-tight leaders. And I'm beginning to see that if this is not checked, we'll run into a big problem. Let me tell you why. Of course, you had followed my political career. You saw my position when it comes to even within internal party itself, where I insist that no party person will be. For instance, the national chairman of a political party can never and will never be the presidential candidate of a political party. I've also maintained that as long as I was the chairman of IPAC, that no gubernatorial aspirant in any state will also be the chairman of that party in that particular state. I've also maintained that internal party democracy must survive and must also be practiced in our political party. Now, why are we moving towards this particular end where we are thinking or even conceiving or even thinking in the place that we're going to have one party state? Every person is scared. Every governor is scared. Every politician is scared. Why? Is because they are dirty. When I say they are dirty, they have a lot of skeleton in their cupboard. So if they don't move towards the incumbent, the party that is operating at the center, definitely, you know how our security system operates. You know how they'll go back and begin to pull a whole lot of things from there, from the cupboard. And so, on account of this perceived fear, most of them are moving out so that they can come close to the center. Now, why is it functional to the system that a polity should be dominated by one political party? It is dysfunctional. It is dysfunctional in the sense that you do not like political ventilation. You do not also give opportunity for people to seek, to maximize their political ideas, their political aspiration, their political ideologies, and all whatnot. And what you do is that when you splinter a political system that having a lot of contending political interest, and you begin to gag it, at a point it will give way. And when it gives way, what will happen is that you have a lot of dissection within the system. At the point we're in now is, if everybody goes to APC, as we speak, the PDP is dead. The PDP we are seeing is almost dead. But it is expected. How would you expect Anyanwu, who has a paymaster, not to favor his... Who has a paymaster, not to favor his paymaster? How would you see Damagon, who has a paymaster, not to favor his paymaster? So the point I'm making is, these things are predictable. It's a pattern, it's a trend. If you do the trend analysis, you know it will get to this point. And it is going to this point. So as we speak now, the PDP is gone. There is no strong political party that can hold the APC. And that is why we are happy of the emergence of ADC. Now, the emergence of ADC is a good thing that has come. Now, the ADC is much more an alliance And that alliance we are praying, let the contending interests, let all the political forces within there, they should come and bury their differences and say how we can move forward, because that is the only front, that is the only platform that can give the APC a run for their money as we currently stand. And you have people who are headlining that. Of course, you talk about Atiku, of course, you talk about Rufai, you talk about Peter Obi, you talk about even Jonathan, who is also in the fringes. They are working out his own scheme on how to come back. Several of them, Peter Obi and the rest of them. So we need to have an alternate political force to help in bottoming out the politicking, and the politics that take place in the state. For me, I can tell you for sure, the move towards a one-party state is very, very retrogressive, and it's not good for our polity.
You talked about the ADC. ADC as presently constituted. Do you think they are properly positioned to challenge the APC come 2027?
ADC technically is not properly positioned. I'm trying to address your question. Technically, the ADC is not properly positioned. But those headlining the APC, those headlining the ADC are properly positioned. Try to understand what I'm saying. The ADC as a political alliance that has incubated, that has several of these political heavyweights in it, is not functionally and technically positioned. But those characters, the operatives that are headlining the alliance, I tell you for sure, are properly positioned to give APC for the run for their money. Remember, I told you that we tend to underestimate the political sagacity and the Machiavellistic character of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Anybody that do that now will at the end of the day will have to regret it. BAT has proven over time that he is a go-getter and gets what he wants. The appointment of the UNINEC chairman is a clear indication that this man is carefully and methodically approaching his game plan. And either we like it or not, he's gradually, subtly, systematically, and measuredly achieving what he wants. Now, for the ADC, they need to bury their difference as early as possible now to be positioned. I'm referring to your question, to be positioned to be a contender to get this. Now, the disarray, the disintegration, or the non-cohesion of the ADC will definitely make the job easier for BAT to become the president of Federal Republic again 2007. And the whole thing is on the handwriting on the wall. Now, what are we saying? There's so much internal crisis within all the political parties in the country. You have leadership squabbles. You have, apart from leadership squabbles, you have drain of funds. Most of them do not have funds to even run the political parties. You also have those who are in these political parties now fronting for the APC and fronting for the leadership of the APC. Now, what you have seen so far now is that among the splinter and minor political parties that is operating, the APC has captured all. Where had not made an inroad now is this alliance of the ADC. And I talk about it, of course, most of the leaders of ADC are my personal friends. And they are also pushers in the system. I think they know who Bola Ahmed Tinubu is. I think I know what they are planning. I think they know the steps to take. But whatever they're doing, my advice as a political advisor is nobody should, for any reason, undermine, for any reason, try to downplay what Bola Ahmed Tinubu is. As I tell you, he's a political god in Nigeria. As we speak, he has done that. The pedigree speaks that. And Bola Ahmed Tinubu is one man that you need to cut off his neck for you to get the presidency. I'm being very realistic about that. And I know that people like Atiku Abubakar are men who can match him for anything. So, to your question, ADC, if they can do their internal re-engineering, if they can get themselves to become one political house, if they can get themselves to be focused and get away selfishness, the ADC can be positioned to be the political party that will now cut off the ADC and get BAT out of office.
All right, for you, if you are to pick one or two persons who should headline the ADC's aspiration to unseat President Tinubu, who will that person's or person be?
Now, let's look at the run. Just look at the run. You have Atiku Abubakar. There's no doubt that he is the most experienced politician on the block. Atiku has all it takes. Atiku has all it takes. In terms of resources, Atiku is well positioned to do that. In terms of experience, Atiku is well positioned to do that. In terms of the clout, Atiku is well positioned to do that. In terms of the structure, Atiku is well positioned to do that. In terms of the coverage across the country, Atiku is well to do that. In terms of the outlook, Atiku is well positioned to do that. In terms of resources available, Atiku is also well positioned to do that. In terms of the political experience, in terms of party, I think is also well positioned to do that. So I can tell you in terms of experience, in terms of background, in terms of pedigree, I think he's way ahead when it comes. I'm being very objective. Way ahead when it comes to the SDC alliance to pick up the fight against Tinubu. Now, the next person you can also look at there is Obi. Obi has a phenomenon pool that cannot be explained. And that phenomenon pool, it's what he used to catapult himself into a political force in this country. And that has played out very well. And I give it to him. Since then, Obi has not rested. Obi has not relented. Obi has been consistent. Now, Obi also have the background. Obi also have the resources. Of course, a former governor is not somebody you take for granted. So, next to Atiku is Obi. Now, but the distinction here is this. Popularity does not always translate to electoral victory. That is a mistake most of us make. Popularity does not translate into electoral victory. There's something we have always seen over. Atiku Abubakar has over the years shown that in party primaries where it matters most, the noise will be made. The politicking will be done. The politicking will be done. All the whole thing will be done. At the end of the day, Alhaji Abubakar Atiku wins the party primaries. And once you win the party primaries, you are the man in the game. And so he has an untainted record to have over time, back to back, to have won party primaries over the years. Now, is ADC going to get to that position where it will become very clear that, look, we are going to have a party primary that will now bring all the candidates? Look at what is going to play out. With Peter Obi himself, without the legacies, without what is happening in his own political party, the Labour Party. One leg in the Labour Party, one leg in also in ADC. Will Obi himself, as we currently speak now, be confident to go into a fight in the ADC and the primary to fight Atiku to get the primary? So these are contending outlook. These are the scenarios that need to play out. So the point I'm making is this. You have Atiku on one side, you have it to be on the other side. Well, maybe the next person you're looking at is El-Rufai. I do not think El-Rufai has a presidential ambition, but Rufai can always play the spoiler anytime, any day. Now, if we go out from this circle of the ADC, I've just mentioned two persons. You will now look at Jonathan. Jonathan, the gentleman who is a good president, if not for the factors and forces that unhinged him. He's also a contender that has a chance of winning. But the thing now is this. Where is Jonathan going to bet? Is Jonathan going to bet in the PDP that allegedly the APC has taken control of? Or with Jonathan look for a small political party to birth in, and at the end of the day use that party to also come out? These are things that should be playing out. So, in a nutshell, I will tell you definitely that in the run to the election itself, the most important people that need to do this, I must tell you, is first and foremost, is for us to ask ourselves a basic question. How will it play out at the end of the day? Is the ADC going to be one political alliance that will walk into a primary with this lineup of Atiku, with this lineup of Peter Obi, with this lineup of several candidates for them to have the election to be done? But if not that is done, we might have an issue. So the bottom line is that, for me, Atiku seems to be the most experienced, followed by Peter Obi.
Let's look at the new INEC chairman and your expectations ahead of 2027.
I do not envy the prof. I don't envy the new INEC chairman in any way at all. That is one of the most dangerous jobs you have on earth. Being the INEC chairman in the country is one of the most dangerous jobs you have on earth. The reason is the expectation is so high. Nigerians have gotten to a breaking point. There is a high level of lack of confidence. Nigerians do not trust the electoral empire. And it takes a man with the grace of God and also professional integrity to see whether Nigerians will restore that confidence and trust in them. Now, let me say, what are the challenges? What are the challenges that the new INEC chairman will face? First of all, you mentioned it. The public confidence and the integrity or reputation of the electoral empire is number one. Number two, the technological innovations which the former INEC chairman advocated and worked to bring to fruition, but later created so much disharmony in the political electoral system, has got to be worked on. I'm talking about the beavers. I'm talking about the IRF. Now, these are significant technological milestones, significant technological breakthrough. Let me use it that way. That would have helped to give us a credible election. But the former INEC chairman and the INEC institution as it is circumvented Nigeria or undermined that particular process. So the new INEC chairman has got to work very strongly to see how he can make sure that this new technological innovation, especially around the beavers, as well as the IRF, is done in such a way that the credibility is restored. Election must be, as the votings are being conducted, it must be showcased online real time for voters to see, for stakeholders to see, and also for the beavers, for accreditation, it should be done. So the challenges for him will be also to improve on these technological innovations which the previous INEC chairman brought on board. The other issue is the relationship between INEC and the judiciary. People lump them up as one. They see them as the same bed. They see them as the same set of people. INEC cannot be divorced completely from the Nigerian judiciary. When in 2023, we saw it very clearly. Before the judgment was given, indication became very clear that INEC was insisting that, look, that election, there were glitches, and so they could not in any way attest to the result by using both the beavers as well as the NRF. And that was the same position the judges gave. So there was nothing different before the judgment was delivered. There was nothing different from what we saw, from what INEC was doing, and from what the judgment that was delivered. So there's this perception that INEC itself and the judiciary are one when it comes to election in this country. And so it is very difficult to dichotomize two of them at the same time. Now, the other key thing you also have to look at also is the issue of funding. Some of these are some of the challenges. Now, budgetary allocation to INEC has always been a problem. Now, I remember vividly my engagement with the former INEC chairman. Of course, I was one of the key people that was instrumental to his coming back for his second term as INEC chairman. Some of the things we had to discuss is how he can raise money. Of course, you see him running from one place to the other, going to international electoral bodies, going to UN, going to European Union, going to ECOWAS, going to several bodies. Not only that, most times you see him going as low as going to National Union of Road Transport Workers to go and see how he can be supported for the logistics of electional materials and all that. So these are the challenges. But the other thing that is very important is to him to prove that the professorial position is an elegant in academics and non-academics. Once you attain the position of a professor, it means you are both certain level of character, and so you should not be shaken. Now, in this country, we have reduced electoral process, we have reduced electoral management, we have reduced electoral appointment by bringing professors and beginning to humiliate them. So the new INEC chairman has got to prove that he is not going to be in the same pack with the same old professors. He has to show that there's some level of respect for those in the academics. And he has got to show that, yes, we've made mistakes in the past, but this is an opportunity for us to right the wrongs of the past and also to elevate the status of those in academics and who are reaching to the level of professorship. So my point is that these are the lengthening of challenges which the new INEC chairman is going to be confronting with. And the way he's able to manage this is also will also help him. Finally, now one of the other key challenges that will also become is how he divorces himself from Mr. President and the executive. If he's able to manage that professionally, if he's able to do that human relationship wise, he's able to do that by his political engagement, it will also help in also standing him out as a neutral, independent, and a credible leader. In the Nigerian climate, Nigerians pull surprises. Most times, I tend to take the analogy of what happens. Let me draw on this parallel. The parallel I draw on is I am being pessimistic. I am being pessimistic at the same time with some tinge of optimism. Now, when Nigeria went into the match with Republic of Benin, the expectation is that, well, we might win the match at the end of the day. But are we going to win as much as with 4-0? I hope you're following me. Yeah. Now, and when it did happen, that Nigeria was able to pull 4-0, it became very clear that Nigeria can do all things. So what I'm saying is that there is a tinge of hope. You hear me very clearly. There is a tinge of hope. But that tinge of hope is not cast in stone. It's not cast in stone. It is possible to have an election that is not only credible, not only fair, not only inclusive, but also that satisfies all requirements of election across the globe. Now, having said that, what do we need to do to have this credible election? First and foremost, INEC has a whole lot of rules. One of the rules INEC has is organizing and conducting election. 2, registration of political parties. 3, you can talk about the electoral boundary delimitation. 4, electoral dispute management. 5, voter education. Now, so INEC has got to put all this together in a package and begin to look how they address each of this. To your question, can we have an inclusive, fair, free, and fair election in this country? Yes, this is possible. A former governor in this country about 2 weeks ago was saying that Nigeria can, if you use technology very well, that we can have the election result in 2 hours, between 2 to 3 hours, the result will come. So my question is, I would not be pessimistic in the sense that most Nigerians here. I still have hope that Nigeria can have a credible, inclusive, fair election where results can be done. Now, if we can be projecting, as we speak now, we have close to 178 polling units across the Federation. So it is getting closer. It is getting closer to the people on ground. What needs to be done is the technology that is being used or that we have already bought into innovation, like the IRIF and the BIVAS, if improvement is done in that very way, and we sincerely allow technology to play its role, Nigeria can have an election that is inclusive, that is free, that is also credible to all, and it will be okay. Finally, there is a role on the part of Nigerians. This subconscious, this resignation that my vote will not count is something we need to work on. Nigeria has got to come to a stage where either we have an election and we stand before the election, after the end of the election, the votes will count. It's our own. Because if we don't do it, Nigeria will not have it easy. So my final conclusion is, it's a responsibility on the part of every Nigerian, that is the voter as I speak. It's also a responsibility on part of the electoral empire. It's also a responsibility on all stakeholders, whether they are partisan or non-partisan, to ensure that Nigeria has a very credible, inclusive, and fair election.
There are some school of thought who are against the president nominating the INEC chairman. What is your take on that? Absolutely.
Because when you appoint somebody, the person automatically becomes loyal to you. There's nothing else you can do. First of all, the essence of the president nominating, we need to understand the process. The president nominates the INEC chairman, and he sends that to the National Assembly, the Senate precisely. The Senate will now do its screening. After doing its screening, the Senate will call a committee to conduct an interview to assess the credibility, the integrity, and the capacity of the candidate that is nominated by the president to function as the INEC chairman. Now, from there, after the Senate confirms, they will send it back to the Mr. President, who will now eventually take it up. So my position is there should be a reversal in this. And that reversal is, I have a strong feeling that the person that is in INEC, the most senior, in the interim, the most senior national commissioner in INEC, who is a technocrat, should be the one that will run INEC. For instance, Mrs. Agbamuche was supposed to be, she had an overnight appointment. She was appointed as the acting national chairman of INEC. But overnight, the new INEC chairman took over. So my position is this. A situation where you have technocrats, professionals who are tenured people that have worked in INEC over the years. In the case of a high-ranking official of INEC who has spent years and has become at that level, should assume the position of the chairmanship of INEC. Then from there, that name, if there are 5 who are national commissioners, for instance, I'm just giving a rundown. Those 5 national commissioners can be sent to the Senate for the Senate to assess them, looking at their pedigree over the years. You've been in INEC for 20 years. You've been in INEC for 30 years. You've been in INEC for 15 years. Look at the pedigree. Look at your scorecard. Look at what you have achieved. Look at what you have done. And they will also, as the Senate is confirming them, the Senate or the National Assembly will be eliciting feedback from the public. It could be like, a 3 months screening period. So with those feedback and all that happen now, the National Assembly now will now push the name. The National Assembly, the Senate will now push the name to the presidency if they have concluded their interview session and all that, and give it to Mr. President. So in this case now, it is coming from the institution to the Senate, from the Senate to the presidency. The president now will now do the nomination now and refer it back to the Senate. The Senate now for confirmation before the president will now approve.
Let's wrap up this way. The judiciary. We've seen a case that so many instances where they determine eventually the outcome of the elections. We vote something else, they determine something else, and a lot of persons are worried. We are also going to 2027. Has anything changed about the judiciary? Should they continue to determine, instead of referring us back to the polls, they determine who should?
These are very hard questions you're pushing across. But it's okay so that we can talk about it. Now, we all know that the Nigerian judiciary is compromised. But a little bit of a caveat. What you see online is not what you get. This only happens in Nigeria. What you buy online abroad, what you see there is what you get. So the Nigerian element, the Nigerian factor is the problem. But I ask you one question. When these Nigerians leave the shores of this country, whoever they are, they go to UK, they go to United States, they go to Canada, they go to anywhere. No matter how bad, how evil you are in Nigeria, once you leave the shores of this country and you move to these countries, you excel. I hope I'm communicating. Sure. You excel. You find Nigerians that are nobody in this country, but just give them a little bit of space, and when they move out of this country, they go abroad, they excel. So there's something inherently about the Nigerian DNA and the Nigerian ecosystem, politically, social, and otherwise, that has been responsible for what is going on. So to your question, judiciary is populated by political judges, political lawyers, political judiciary operatives. Now, you need to understand the process of appointing a judge, whether it is at the state high court, whether it is at the federal high court, whether it is appointed at the magistrate high court, whatever level of judiciary, you find that these people are politically appointed. So when you find somebody who is politically appointed, what he does is that he does not listen to the tenets. He does not follow the rubrics of judicial principle, what he does is basically to listen to the political end. And that's why you find that most of the judges are political judges. And so when they deliver their judgment is not a reflection of their experiences, of their conscience, of their temerity, of their religious background, of their status as a humane, as a rational, as a God-fearing set of people, but rather these are political people taking political decisions other than judicial position. Now, it's just a laughing stock when you stayed almost 6 or 7 hours and you watch the judgment during the 2023 election and see what happened, how the judges, when you look at the logicalness, when you look at the background of the judgment you look at the feedback, you look at the provisions, the evidences, and all what that happened, it became very clear that these judges are not learned people. It became very clear that these are jokers, and these people are just, at the perch of promoting political consideration than judicial antecedent we have in this country. So, in a nutshell, no Nigerian should hope and believe that the judiciary is their last hope. Their last hope when they come to electoral matters, because they will not do that. Because at the end of the day, things will exchange hands. Definitely, they will give rulings to those that are their paymaster. So, for the judiciary, there's no hope in that regard.